Welcome to the Monday episode and episode 4 of Arch City Sports. I'm your host here, AJ Nance, and it is a very exciting time to be a St. Louis sports fan. The Cardinals are now 3-0 to start their 2025 campaign, and the St. Louis Blues are on a 9-game winning streak with a couple games this week that look definitely in their favor. We're going to dive into all of that today and a little bit more, but before we do that, a word from our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Shoot 360 St. Louis. Shoot 360 St. Louis is a high-tech basketball training facility featuring the same shooting technology utilized by all the NBA teams, combined with excellent coaching. Unlock your game at Shoot 360 St. Louis. Register for a free 1-hour workout by downloading the Shoot 360 mobile app or visit www.shoot360stl.com. Go follow Shoot 360 St. Louis on Instagram, Shoot 360 STL. Follow the podcast as well at Arch City Sports on Instagram and on TikTok. If you are listening over there on Spotify or Amazon Music, make sure to hit the follow button and leave a nice rating for us. And if you are watching on YouTube, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And on both platforms, make sure to hit that notifications button so you get updated immediately when a new episode drops. So, I mentioned a great time to be a St. Louis sports fan in general. A little news, St. Louis City lost 1-0 this past week, and we're not going to dive too much into that. They lost to Austin FC. And then the St. Louis Battlehawks, part of the now UFL, I believe it was a 31-6 victory, so a dominant victory on that end as well. We're not going to dive too much into that because the other two major sports teams in St. Louis and the Cardinals and the Blues are playing phenomenal baseball and phenomenal hockey on both ends. You know, I was thinking yesterday as well, I cannot remember a more exciting time to be a St. Louis sports fan. I know it's only been 3 games for the Cardinals, and I know the Blues have had their ups and downs this season. But since 2019, when the Blues won the Stanley Cup and the Cardinals made the NLCS a eventual loss to the Washington Nationals, I cannot remember a time in these past 5-6 years where it's been more exciting. The Blues are riding high right now, a 9-game winning streak with a couple games that look to be in their favor this week with the Red Wings on Tuesday and the Penguins on Thursday. And then the St. Louis Cardinals, we have the Minnesota Twins come in for opening day, then a day off, then a couple games this weekend. And I thought maybe we could squeeze out one of these 3 or maybe 2 of these games. You know, they have Joe Ryan, Pablo Lopez, Bailey Ober. All 3 of these guys are potential all-star level pitchers. And we just absolutely walked over them. 10-plus hits in all 3 games, I believe. We outscored them, I believe it was 19-6. We are plus 13 run differential, which is top 3 in all of baseball right now, along with being one of the 4 undefeated teams in baseball. I cannot remember a time right now with all the momentum that the Blues are providing on the hockey side of it. I can't remember a time since 2019 where there has been this much excitement. But kind of building off that with the Cardinals, I mentioned, my goodness, they not only 3 wins, but 3 dominant wins, 3 dominant victories, a 19-6 run difference this series versus the Minnesota Twins. Starting on opening day, Sonny Gray got the call on opening day. There was no shock there. We got the offense started very early. Lars Nootbaar getting on base. I believe then he stole second base, if I remember correctly, or he got there on a wild pitch. And then Brendan Donovan brings him in, kind of just moving along, and Brendan Donovan doing what Brendan Donovan always does, where he just makes contact and finds the hole, and he's not going to provide a ton of power for it, even though he does have a good amount of pop, but he's great in with runners in scoring position, and he provided there with a quick 1-0 start. Sonny Gray was solid on the day. 5 innings, ran into a little bit of trouble. I believe it was later in the 5th inning. Was getting a little high up in pitches for what we thought he would do for the day. He was at 77 pitches total. Had Carlos Correa at the plate, and Correa hits a missile to second base, and Brendan Donovan makes an unbelievable play. One of 2 amazing plays Donovan made this weekend. Flips it over to Mason Wynn. Mason Wynn shows off the arm. A double play to get out of the 5th inning, and I think that was the major turning point. At this point in the game, it was 4-2. They had a little momentum, Minnesota did, and we kind of put an end to that thanks to Brendan Donovan. And Sonny Gray was, like I said, really solid. 6 strikeouts. He gave up 1 homer to Harrison Bader. He went 5 innings, giving up 2 runs, 77 pitches, and he's been dealing with some illness along with a very poor spring training, and those might align, the illness and his poor performance this spring training. But for him to come out and give us 5 really solid innings against a Twins lineup that's, in my opinion, pretty underrated. You have Larnack who can hit, Wallner can hit, but then you got the big guys. You got Correa and Buxton, and Ryan Jeffers is one of the best hitting catchers in all of baseball. Ty France can have his moments. Jose Miranda and Willie Castro had really good last season, so last year. So for us to come in here, and Sonny in particular in this instance, to give us 5 innings, 2 runs is really nice. Then you hand it off to, in my opinion, I know it's really early, but even coming into the season, a top 5, at least top 10 bullpen in all of baseball. Handing it off to Kyle Leahy. Leahy did give up 1 run here. John King got out of that inning. Chris Roycroft, a quick 1-2-3 inning. Maton, the newest addition, Phil Maton, with 1 inning of work, giving up 1 hit, striking out 1, and then you hand it off to Ryan Helsley to shut the door, striking out the side, and the Cardinals get a 5-3 victory in this one. Taking a look at the lineup, Lars Nootbaar was the story, in my opinion, of the entire weekend. He's now batting .571 over these past 3 games, 2 for 4 in this first game with a homer, an absolute bomb, by the way, to right field. Brendan Donovan, a couple hits and an RBI. Nolan Arenado, a couple hits and an RBI, including his first homer of the season. Ivan Herrera, a couple hits in this one, and then Jordan Walker also had a hit in this one. A 5-3 victory to start the season. You go into game 2 after a day off on Friday, and we had Eric Fedde going. And I didn't know. I mean, Eric Fedde's had a really nice career stats versus the Minnesota Twins, but you don't know how that's going to play out. Minnesota's got Joe Ryan, which I think is, in my opinion, their best pitcher in the rotation. I think he's better than Pablo Lopez and Bailey Ober. They had Pablo go game 1. I didn't feel confident in this one, and Eric Fedde pitched an absolute gem. 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, only 2 strikeouts, pumping it in the strike zone, only 73 pitches. Later in the season, if he has outings like this, he's going to be able to go into the 7th inning, potentially even 8th inning. Extremely efficient outing for Eric Fedde. And again, we jumped on Joe Ryan really early in this one. We had Arenado with an RBI single to start this one after Lars Nootbaar got on base. And then Willie Castro doubled to drive in Larnack to make it 1-1 on Eric Fedde. No scoring at all until the 6th inning, but it just felt like we had the advantage, it seemed like, the entire game. There was not even a point, even that 1-1 game in the 5th inning through 5 innings. I did not think the Twins had a lot of momentum in this one. We just kind of had the had the energy about us, especially in the dugout. The guys have been extremely lively, and I think it was Victor Scott that said the other day that we we are Youngry, I think he pronounced it as young and hungry. So they're really showing a lot of energy. We get into that 6th inning, and this is where we not extended the lead, but got the lead back and then extended it. Ivan Herrera drives in Arenado. Lars Nootbaar was the biggest hit of the game in this one, a 2-1 game. We had the bases loaded with 0 out. Mason Wynn, or I believe it was Victor Scott first, strikes out, but put up a very good at bat. 8-pitch at bat, and then you have Mason Wynn, who strikes out on like 4 pitches. Bases loaded, 0 out. Now bases loaded, 2 out, and Lars Nootbaar drives in 2 massive runs for the St. Louis Cardinals, making this a 4-1 game in the 6th inning. Skip ahead to the 8th inning. Brendan Donovan with a sac fly to make it a 5-1 game. That means we did not have to use Helsley in this one. Bullpen-wise, we had Eric Fedde, obviously, 6 innings, 1 run. Out of the bullpen, though, Ryan Fernandez, an inning, 1-2-3, 10 pitches, like it was nothing. Jojo Romero, an inning, 1 hit, no runs. And then Phil Maton shut the door on this one, 1 inning, 1-2-3. The Twins had 3 hits, 1 run on the day. We only had 3 strikeouts, but all of our guys are pumping the baseball into the strike zone. I mean, just pumping strikes right now and getting really weak contact. And I don't know if that's sustainable. I mean, obviously that's what our rotation is built off of with Fedde and Palante and Sonny. Obviously Michaelis and Libby's probably more the biggest strikeout guy we have in the rotation. Sonny can get his double-digit strikeouts every once in a while, but all those guys are big-time contact pitchers, and this weekend they all performed phenomenally and exactly how you want it. So a 2-0 start to the season. Then on Sunday, we have a couple of our backups in. You give Gorman a chance to start. You give Pedro Pajes a chance to start. You get Jordan Walker off his feet. Wilson Contreras is not at first base. You have Alec Burleson and Palante on the mound. And there was it was kind of a rainy day here in St. Louis. And the boys came out and performed once again. Andre Palante, 5 innings, 2 runs after a little bit of a rocky start in the first inning. 78 pitches on the afternoon. And again, just like Fedde, later in the season probably could give you another inning easily to go 6 innings in this one. But Palante, 5 innings, 2 runs. And that rain delay did happen right after the 5th inning. So there was no way he was going to come back after that even later in the season. So 5 innings, 2 runs from Andre Palante. Looking at the lineup, Lars Nootbaar was hitting everything hard in this one, but did not have a hit. Had a couple walks, though. Wilson Contreras, I believe, 0 for 14 or 0 for 15 to start the year. It is one of the best 0 for 14, 0 for 15 starts that I've seen. He's been hitting everything really hard, right on the nose, just not getting the results for it. So I'm not very worried about Contreras whatsoever. Brendan Donovan a hit in this one. Arenado a hit. Burleson, 2 RBI double. Nolan Gorman and Pedro Pajes in the 6-7 hole in the lineup were the stars of the game, though. They combined to go 6 for 8. Nolan Gorman with a homer in this one. Also, Pedro Pajes was a triple away from the cycle. He hit his first homer of the year. Victor Scott, right after him, had a 3-run homer as well. I believe they said some crazy stat where we had 8 or 9 3-run homers all of last year, and in this game alone, Pedro Pajes and Victor Scott both had one. So, tremendous start for Victor Scott. Tremendous start for, obviously, Gorman and Pajes in this one. Arenado's hitting the cover off the ball. Brendan Donovan's batting over 300. Lars Nootbaar's playing phenomenal. Ivan Herrera, in his 2 games that he started, both were multi-hit games. So, everybody up and down the order is hitting right now. And, again, just like the pitching rotation and the pitching staff in general, I don't know how long this will be sustainable for us. But right now it's really, really fun to watch. And we have a really tough schedule the rest of April and then going into May as well. But we have the Angels this week, and we could get off if we could get off to a 5-1, 6-0 start. How good would that look going into the Red Sox series, and then the Phillies come to town, and the Braves later this month, and all these teams. I believe the Brewers are on there as well. So, and the Reds. So we have a lot of tough teams coming up. Can we get off to this 5-1, 6, maybe even 6-0 start and beat up on the Angels when they're in town this week? That would be an amazing start. My only worries and concerns coming out of this past weekend is with one player, and that is Mason Wynn. He had a very poor spring training after a very standout season, breakout season last year for Mason Wynn as a rookie. Was it in the leadoff spot every single day last year, provided a lot on obviously both sides of the ball. Defensively has been great so far this year, but offensively really struggled in spring training, batted under 100 this spring. And then coming into the season, he is now hitless this series. I believe it's 0 for 13 or 0 for 14 this series, and is a very different 0 for 13 or 0 for 14 than Wilson Contreras is doing. Wilson is hitting everything hard, right on the nose, right to people. Hit a couple in this series right to the left fielder, but just absolute missiles, over 100 miles per hour off the bat. Mason Wynn's doing it very differently. A very poor, in my opinion, very poor plate approach rather. He has 5 strikeouts and is 0 for 9 this season so far with a couple walks. So not even in the leadoff spot like obviously he was the majority of last year. And I actually credit Ollie for making that decision. It would be very easy to say, Mason Wynn, we're going to ride him out. He had a great last year. He's just in a little bit of a funk through spring. He'll get right in the leadoff spot. But I love Ollie's decision not to do that. Let Lars Nootbaar, who swung a really hot bat in spring and is obviously off to a scorching hot start at the major league level, let him lead off. He's great at getting on base and putting up long at bats and getting guys on deck and in the dugout, being able to see pitches. I love him in the leadoff spot, and let Mason kind of relax. And even though he hasn't had the results, let him relax in the 9-hole. I will say the biggest thing with Mason Wynn is last year we saw his 2-strike approach was one of the top 3 in all of baseball. I believe average and production-wise overall, outside of Aaron Judge, he was right there for some of the best production with 2 strikes. And we have not seen that with his 6 strikeouts and his 9 at-bats, a couple walks thrown in there as well, like I said. But there's a lot with Mason Wynn's at-bats that I just don't love right now. His approach doesn't seem the best. He's swinging out of his shoes on a couple that, if he just brings that swing down a little bit, I think, and does that almost inside-out swing and tries to drive it to right field, right center field like he was doing the majority of last year, I think he'd be in a better spot. So I want to see the development of him. I said it this offseason, I do expect a drop-off production-wise offensively from him. Defensively, I think he's going to be still amazing and a gold glove caliber defender for us. But offensively, I think there's going to be a drop-off. I just hope it's not the extreme drop-off that we're seeing so far in spring and so far to start this year. Looking ahead to the games this week, we have a busy week. 6 games this week, starting with a 3-game homestand with the Angels in town. Starting tonight with Tyler Anderson getting his first start of the year for the Angels and Miles Michaelis getting his first start of the year for your St. Louis Cardinals. Game 2 on Tuesday, also a night matchup here. We have Kyle Hendricks, who's been a Cardinal killer, but this is a different Cardinals roster, so hopefully we can jump on him early and often, versus Matthew Liberatore, who got the nod over Steven Matz. And I do have to give a shout out to Steven Matz. 4 shutout innings with only giving up 1 hit out of the bullpen after that rain delay. Matz could be, if healthy, that's the biggest thing, kind of a weapon for us this year. He could be a starter in a 6-man rotation. He could be a long relief guy. He could be thrown in high leverage situations. He could be thrown in the middle innings. Like, there's so many things, and he's very versatile, him and Liberatore. And I thought, honestly, that was going to be Liberatore's role. He had a really good spring, and I understand giving him the starting rotation spot. So Matz is now thrown into that versatility role in the bullpen, and I think we could, really use him this year. But we do have Libby in the rotation making his first start on Tuesday, and then to wrap up the series on Wednesday afternoon, Yusei Kikuchi versus Sonny Gray, the 2 number 1 starters going at it for their second time around in the rotation. So a 3-0 or a 3-0 start rather to the Cardinals season, something that I did not expect to be saying. We are one of 4 undefeated teams in all of baseball. The San Diego Padres, New York Yankees, Los Angeles Dodgers, and your St. Louis Cardinals are the 4 undefeated teams in baseball. And we have the 3rd best run differential so far, only giving up 6 runs this series to a Twins lineup that can do some damage and will do some damage throughout this season. Really, you can't draw up a better start for the Cardinals outside of potentially, Mason Wynn having a better start. So love what I'm seeing so far. I'm actually going to be back tomorrow with a Cardinals reaction show with the Game 1 versus the Angels. So make sure to tune into that tomorrow morning about 10 a.m. or 10:30, 11 a.m., somewhere in that range tomorrow morning. So make sure to tune into that. But before we get out of here today, let's transition into the St. Louis Blues. The Blues are playing, obviously, their best hockey of the season, but they might be playing some of the best hockey that anybody has played all year long. They have a 9-game winning streak, and out of these last 9 games, we have given up 3 or more goals 1 time. That was in an overtime matchup, I believe, against the Canucks. 9-game winning streak. Everybody's playing well. And I think it was Monty, or it was actually Armstrong, our general manager, that said it the other day. What is the difference between this club and what we saw earlier this year? And he said the number 1 line and the number 2 line are both playing tremendous hockey right now at the exact same time. That's something we have not seen all year long. And then you have those versatility and depth lines in the 3rd and 4th line that do all the little dirty work type stuff for you. The 70s line with Bolduc and Sonny and and Joseph, and then the fourth line, the WTF line with Foxa, Walker, and Toropchenko. Those 6 guys do all the dirty work. They're not going to score a lot for you, besides Bolduc, who's had now 16 goals in the year and breaking out. They're not going to score a lot outside of Bolduc for you, but they're going to do all the little things. And your top 2 lines are really producing right now. Since the Four Nations Cup, not only do we have the best record in all of hockey, but Jordan Kyrou has the second most points in all of hockey. Jordan Kyrou is breaking out right now. Robert Thomas is several multi-point games in this last 9-10 game stretch here. You have Dylan Holloway, who's turning into a potential star for you. Now 26 goals on the season. You have Philip Broberg on the back end playing pretty well. And the more this season goes on, the more you understand how much we just absolutely finessed the Oilers. I mean, we pretty much robbed them out of Broberg and Holloway, 2 guys that could be the cornerstone of your franchise moving forward. I mean, they're not just supplementary pieces. They're probably not the number 2 or number 1 and number 2 guys for us moving forward, but they could definitely be in that top 5 players for us for a championship roster down the line. You call up Dalibor Dvorsky for a game or 2, let him see kind of sniff the NHL level a little bit. Then you have Jimmy Snuggerud, who's now with the squad. Now I don't know how much he's going to play down the stretch. I think honestly, if we clinch a spot early, you could put him in. If we play against some of these poor teams like we saw recently, I don't remember who the team was. I think it was the Predators matchup, and there was another one. It might have been the Canadians or maybe the Predators again, where a team below us that we're rolling right now. So you can rest a couple guys and kind of get away with it. Not only get away with it, but you put in Alexander Texier and he scores a couple goals for you. So credit Texier for staying ready there, but you also have obviously Dvorsky you can throw in there and Snuggerud you can throw in there, and defensively Matt Kessel has been solid for you that you can sprinkle him in and give guys rest. But speaking of the defense, even on the back end you have Parayko, who's been out, but how good has Fowler been, and Broberg and Leddy, Suter, Tucker, like Falk. You go down the line, all 6 of those defensemen have been huge in picking up for Parayko's absence. So and you're going to get Parayko back as well. I mean, ideally, hopefully. I mean, he's skating right now, and I think he'll be back in the next week or so, and maybe even you rest him until the playoffs. Make sure he's as healthy as he can possibly be going into a first-round matchup, potentially against Winnipeg or Vegas. And, I like our chances against anybody right now. We have 7 games left in this one. Binnington and Hofer have been great. I think Monty's approach and game plan has been phenomenal. And, when you watch Blues games, obviously we're not giving up a lot of goals right now. We're scoring our fair share, but defensively, it's so hard for opposing teams to get entries into our zone. And then also, if they do get sustained possession in our zone, we just kind of tighten everything up, and passing lanes are really tight, and it's not a lot of room for opposing teams to work with. And that's all credit to Monty and his staff for creating that game plan. And I think what he's doing is that he's got enough guys, and all of the guys on the roster buying into what he wants or how he wants them to play right now, and they're winning because of it. So shout out Monty and the staff. Shout out the whole team for how they're playing right now. I have no complaints about anybody right now. I mean, Matty Joe is playing great. Oscar Sundqvist is giving great minutes, and those are the 2 guys that out of the 4 lines that I've been kind of having slight complaints about all year. So shout out those guys, and shout out a 9-game winning streak with this week having the Red Wings on Tuesday, so tomorrow. Then you have the Penguins on Thursday. We could be talking about easily an 11-game winning streak going into a Saturday night matchup at home versus the Colorado Avalanche. The games for the rest of the year. We have a 3-game homestand here this week, same as the Cardinals, versus the Red Wings, versus the Penguins, versus the Avs. Then we go on the road. We face Winnipeg. We face Edmonton. We face Seattle. And then we're back home to end the year versus Utah. I mean, out of these 7 games, can we go 5-2? Can we go 6-1? Like, I'm okay if we lose maybe 1 or 2 in there. And might prefer it before we go into the playoffs. I don't think I would want to ride a 16-game winning streak going into the playoffs because we haven't lost in a while, and if you lose game one in the postseason, maybe you're thrown off. I'd rather sprinkle in a loss to Winnipeg or Edmonton and go from there. But let's keep winning this week for sure. Versus Detroit, versus Pittsburgh, two teams. Red Wings are one game over 500. The Penguins are 4 games under 500. Let's take care of the business here. And you look right now, and the Blues have I believe it's 11th or 12th best record in all of hockey. We're 40-28-7. I mean, they have turned their whole season around and are now a threat in the postseason. I know a lot of people won't think we're going to win it all, but if you're an opposing team, if you're Winnipeg or Vegas, you do not want to see a Blues team steamrolling through everybody right now in the first round. That's what we saw back in 2019 where Winnipeg faced us in the first round, and we beat them in 6 games. Then we beat Dallas in 7 games. Then we beat San Jose, which was the cream of the crop back in 2019. We beat them in 6 games. Then we saw Boston and obviously won our first cup that year. So, wow, very exciting times here in St. Louis. The Cardinals are rolling, the Blues are rolling, and we just want to keep this momentum going. Probably the most, like I said at the very beginning, the most exciting time to be a St. Louis sports fan since 2019 when the Cardinals and Blues were playing that well. So, a lot of fun right now. I will be back tomorrow for the Cardinals reaction show versus the Los Angeles Angels, and I will also be back on Wednesday for a Blues reaction show and Cardinals reaction show. Blues versus the Red Wings, Cardinals versus the Angels once again. So make sure to tune in over there. Of course, go follow our sponsor, Shoot 360 St. Louis, on Instagram, on TikTok, on all those platforms, and follow the podcast as well at Arch City Sports on Instagram, TikTok, Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube. Make sure to like and subscribe over there on YouTube. Follow and rate the podcast on Spotify. And of course, like I said at the very beginning, turn on those post notifications so you get updated immediately when a new episode drops. I will see you guys tomorrow for the Cardinals reaction show versus the Angels.